welcome. You're watching India Today Global, and there's some breaking news coming in at the top of this bulletin. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meet for the fourth time this year to chalk out a plan which Trump calls a real chance for greatness in the Middle East. This has to do with the Gaza deal. Meanwhile, a senior Qatari delegation arrived from Doha in Washington to finalize the agreement for the release of the hostages. Amid accusations of genocide and driving Palestinians to hunger and malnutrition, Israel continues its offensive in Gaza, which it claims is directed against Hamas and not the civilian population. Earlier, the U.S. shared a 21-point proposal to end the war in Gaza and for the creation of a pathway for a future Palestinian state. Meanwhile, the Hamas, which is one of the parties to this entire ceasefire plan, has conveyed that they are unaware of any proposed deal.
It seems Gaza's future will soon be decided at the West Wing as US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meet for the fourth time. Trump has been optimistic about a deal which will enable the Palestinians to remain in Gaza Strip. However, Hamas has said that it has not yet received any negotiating deal.
President Trump, are you confident, sir, there'll be peace in Gaza anytime soon? And the 21-point plan, is everyone on board?
As Trump talks about greatness in the Middle East and something special, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN last week condemned the world leaders for encouraging terrorism against Jews by recognizing the Palestine state.
The leaders who recognize the Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians, it's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off. Well, I have a message for these leaders. When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong. Your disgraceful decision will encourage terrorism against Jews and against innocent people everywhere.
In yet another post on Truth Social, Trump said productive discussions were being held with the Middle East players. He also said Hamas has been aware of the talks. Describing it a period of death and darkness, the US president reiterated the demands to release the remaining 48 hostages for a permanent and long-lasting peace. Earlier, the US shared a 21-point proposal to end the war in Gaza and for the creation of a pathway for a future Palestinian state. The plan proposes for immediate release of hostages, encouraging Palestinians to remain in the Strip and granting amnesty to peaceful Hamas members. Meanwhile, families of 48 hostages with Hamas have written a letter to President Trump and urging and expressing their faith in him that he will be able to secure a deal and get the hostages back. On the one hand, Israeli Prime Minister's address at the UNGA witnessed delegates who walked out as a mark of protest. On the other, there were protests against Bibi in New York and in Tel Aviv.
He didn't talk about, didn't mention about anything about finishing this bloody war. And even the hostages, he didn't read all the hostages' names. So we've got to understand that they've got no time. They've got all to come back home.
If I could speak to Netanyahu, what would I say? I mean, I would like to speak to the Palestinian people. I mean, I would tell him that the Zionist occupation is nearing its end, that the Palestinian people will be free, that we know that they can attempt and brutalize people and kill and murder people all they want, but the people of the world, the people who have conscience, will never, never abandon the Palestinian cause, and that we are prepared to fight to the long end, right alongside our Palestinian siblings.
As Israel continues with its plan to go further into Gaza as a part of their ground offensive, the IDF drops leaflets over Gaza urging people to leave. Meanwhile, organizers of an international aid flotilla said they would press on with attempts to break an Israeli naval embargo on Gaza, despite pleas by Italy to accept a compromise proposal and not take further risks. The global Summit flotilla, made of about 50 civilian boats, was hit by drones carrying stun grenades and itching powder in international waters 30 nautical miles off the Greek island of Gavdos. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, amid trade uncertainties between India and the US, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said India must react correctly to the US and that US needs to fix a bunch of countries. In an interview with News Nation, Lutnick said, and I quote, "We have a bunch of countries to fix like Switzerland, Brazil, right? It's got an issue. India, these are countries that need to really react correctly to America, open their markets, stop taking actions that harm America, and that's why we're off sides with them. Those, I think, will be sorted out, but they take time, and these countries have to understand that if you want to sell to the US customer, right, you've got to play ball with the President of the United States. So those are still coming, a bunch of countries left, but the big ones, maybe the big ones, you know, India will sort it out over time." The remarks follow after a high-level Indian delegation led by Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal visited the US. It also comes at a time when External Affairs Minister of India, S. Jaishankar, met US Secretary of State Marco Rubio in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA. Well, those are the details that are coming in. There are certain high officials in the Trump administration who are looking at and targeting, particularly targeting India and China and various other countries, including Brazil and Switzerland. But China has been let off when it comes to tariffs. India is being punished for the position and the tough position that India has taken for a very long time, including the position and stand on the conflict between India and Pakistan, where claims have been made now over umpteen number of times by none other than the President of the United States of America. That has not gone down well with the US, but India, including in the United Nations and the G20, have very clearly said that they are going to continue looking at India's interests first. The UN sanctions are back to haunt Iran. After a failed attempt by China and Russia to delay the reimposition of sanctions on Iran at the UN, the UK, France and Germany have accused Iran of lack of cooperation and continued nuclear escalation, prompting the sanctions. Mahashweta Lala with this report.
The UK, France and Germany have imposed snapback sanctions on Iran, accusing it of lack of cooperation and continued nuclear escalation. The UN economic and military sanctions were reimposed on Iran 10 years after they were lifted in a 2015 international deal called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The UN confirmed that the sanctions against Iran have been reactivated. Britain, France and Germany initiated the return of an arms embargo and sanctions on Iran at the UN Security Council over accusations it had violated in a 2015 deal that aimed to stop it developing a nuclear bomb. Iran suspended ties with the IAEA, the nuclear watchdog, and the inspection of its nuclear facilities. The move followed after Israel and the US bombed Iranian nuclear sites. But this has not deterred Iran's nuclear ambitions, which it claims is being used for civilian purpose. Iran expressed optimism that with the support of its neighbors and allies, it can weather the sanctions.
The reality is that with the measures we have in place, with the relationships we maintain with our neighbors, with the countries in Eurasia, BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and with interactions that have been forming, as well as with the people of our own country and Iranians who care about Iran and the territorial integrity of the nation and who believe in the dignity and pride of the Iranian people, we will be able to overcome the situation.
Iran's parliament condemned the snapback sanctions and called it illegal.
The Islamic Republic of Iran considers the implementation of the snapback mechanism and the reinstatement of sanctions resolutions to be illegal. Considering that Russia and China, as two permanent members of the Security Council, have explicitly stated this in the official statements and public positions, no country is obligated to comply with them.
The JCPOA limits Iran's nuclear enrichment of uranium research and development. It allows Iran to build its nuclear infrastructure without building nuclear weapons. Donald Trump had pulled out of the deal during his first tenure at the White House. Trump had earlier threatened to strike Iran's nuclear facilities again if it did not stop building nuclear weapons. Experts feel that these sanctions will further escalate Iran's nuclear ambitions, which now will remain unchecked.
So despite Trump's threats to strike again if Iran resumes certain nuclear activity, military action is not a viable long-term strategy, particularly if Iran prioritizes secrecy over speed, when it rebuilds. I mean, the fact is Iran can rebuild its program at much smaller, more hardened facilities. And if that happens outside of IAEA monitoring, it's going to be much more challenging to detect and disrupt, those activities.
Earlier, Russia and China pushed to delay the return of the sanctions on Iran, but attempts failed at the 15-member UN Security Council after only 4 countries supported their draft resolution. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
And going back to the big story that we were talking about, how the US Commerce Secretary has come out against India, saying that India must react correctly, to speak a little bit on this and how that impacts the trade talks that are underway between India and the United States of America. I'm being joined by my colleague, Pranay Upadhyay. Pranay, thank you so much for joining us here. Massive statement coming in from Lutnick. We know that there are certain very senior officials in the Trump camp, Lutnick, Navarro, and a bit of Besant as well, who are hawks when it comes to India. What does this mean? Does this mean that there is going to be more coming India's way, or are we looking at maybe fixing the problem?
Gita, you rightly pointed it out, and I would say that if you see the series of statements, especially senior officials of the Trump administration, you can see an attitudinal issue here. You can also call it a white man's burden attitude, because they think that they have to fix. They are the one who are running the world. However, the reality is that the world is increasingly becoming multipolar. And every country, if you see post-COVID, the shifts and the kind of tectonic shift we see in different parts of the world, how the countries are aligning. It's about how you build your relation, how you multipolarity, how you build partners, and this is how you do do business. But if you see Trump administration here, more problems are coming on India's way. If you see the series of statements, not only in terms of the statement, but also in terms of the action, the H-1B visa issue. Today only, the the US Department of Labor has posted on social media saying that they are quite committed to do away with the H-1B visa system. Besides that, the Hire Act is also in consideration. Even the decision to put 100% tariff on the movies, this is going to impact in some way or other, because India is so linked, and India is has become so integrated with the US economy in last 20-25 years that many of the businesses which used to come to India, now they will get impacted, because if the Avenger 2 movie, the VFX of the animation of that movie was actually done in India, so it is going to impact in India. So we have to see that how we have to hedge that, how we can ensure that our interests are protected. But certainly we have to rework our strategy to deal with the United States, and especially the Trump administration here.
Right. Pranay, also, it's a playbook. A lot of people are saying that, Trump is acting differently, but it's a playbook when it comes to American interests and how America uses countries. Look at India, where India works with the US on its own merits. And look at Pakistan, where they're willing to yet again make the cardinal mistake of selling off their land and their country for very personal short-term gains.
Geeta, Pakistan has always been a vassal state, and there's a client-contractor kind of a relation between Pakistan and the United States. If you see the history of the U.S.-Pakistan relationship, they have sold out their country, their bases, their interests, to please America, to get American dollars, to get the foreign aid, and this is how the Pakistani military thrived. And it was candidly admitted by many senior leaders of Pakistan, including the former military dictator and former president of Pakistan, Pervez Musharraf, who candidly admitted on television interviews that yes, they did use these mujahideens. They got money, and even as recent as a few months back, Pakistan's defense minister Khwaja Asif admitted the fact that they got used, and in fact they did for the Western for the Western nations, including the United States. They got money in return, and this is how Pakistan built that relationship. So Pakistan will always look forward relationship and partnership in lieu of American dollars and in lieu of the American aid, and they hardly cared. If you see the situation, Geeta, today in POK, so-called Pakistani Prime Minister went to UN and cried about the Kashmir cause, so-called.
Right.
So their juggler vain. But today there was massive protest in POK, Gilgit-Baltistan. The Pakistan-China CPEC trade is stalled for many days here in Gilgit-Baltistan area.
Right. Pranay, stay on with me. There's some breaking news coming in. Well, news just coming in. This is a meeting that's underway in the White House, and Axios is reporting that sources close to Netanyahu have told Axios that Israel's Prime Minister apologized to Qatari Prime Minister for attack on Doha. This was to get a few Hamas leadership in Qatar, based in Doha. Massive operation by Israel, and now we're looking at a phone call between the two prime ministers. This is a report based on sources in Axios. Pranay, coming back to you, this is massive because we do know that Qatar is very important for President Trump. Even ahead of that meeting, we're looking at a conversation to bring down tempers when it comes to Qatar's sovereignty and territorial integrity being violated by Israel.
Geeta, in foreign policy, often things are weighed and valued with the proposition whether the risk outweighs the benefit or the benefit outweighs the risk. Here, the kind of risk Israel took, it actually outweighed the benefit because they could not kill or eliminate any important or significant Hamas leader. However, they ended up actually disturbing the equilibrium of the West Asia. And if you see after that, Saudi Arabia entered an agreement, defense agreement with Pakistan. The way Qatar behaved, the way it actually, created problem in West Asia, and it actually disturbed the equilibrium with the United States as well. If you see, the Qataris were asking United States to take some action in this regard because Qatar hosts an important and, in fact, the biggest base of United States, Al Udeid base in West Asia.
So let's see whether that will help lower tempers, even as Qatari delegation is in Washington for a meeting. Pranay Upadhyay, thank you so much. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Today Global. But before I go, here is another story. Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco are finally married, and the internet can't keep calm. The couple celebrated their love in an intimate California wedding. Here is the report. Goodbye and take care.
Yes, the moment we were all waiting for. Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco are married. The couple shared pictures of their dreamy, intimate wedding ceremony, which took place in California, attended by close family and a few industry friends. The pictures showed them kissing and embracing as they posed for photos on a sunlit lawn. For her big day, Selena wore a traditional white gown, custom made by Ralph Lauren. The halter-high neck dress hugged her waist and carried a flowing trail, giving a chic and timeless vibe. And her beau, Benny, completed his look with a crisp, classic Ralph Lauren tuxedo. Yes, we are all fans of Benny's green flag comments on Selena's posts, and this time it had to be something very special. After her wedding post, Benny commented, "My wife in real life," and fans cannot stop gushing over it. The couple started dating in 2023 after years of friendship and got engaged late last year. Selena had confirmed their relationship on social media, calling it the best thing that has ever happened to her. With Sujata Sharda, Bureau Report, India Today.